You don't remember the exact day it started. Most awakenings don't announce themselves. They arrive quietly, disguised as exhaustion. You were not broken. You were not weak. You were simply tired of pretending that noise was meaning. Every morning felt the same. You woke up already tired, as if sleep had only paused a weight instead of lifting it. Your body moved through routines your soul no longer recognized. You spoke to people, answered messages, completed tasks, smiled when required. From the outside, nothing was wrong. From the inside, something essential was missing. And the strange part was this. You couldn't explain what. It wasn't sadness. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even loneliness in the traditional sense. It was a quiet disconnection, like watching your own life through glass. You began to notice how often your mind escaped the present moment, how it lived either in memories or imagined futures, rarely here. Even joy felt delayed, filtered, incomplete. Moments passed before you could feel them. Sometimes, you couldn't feel them at all. And at night, when the world finally slowed down, that feeling returned stronger. The silence became loud. That's when the questions began. Not dramatic ones, not poetic ones, but simple and unsettling. Why does everything feel so heavy when nothing is technically wrong? Why do I feel behind even when I'm moving forward? Why does life feel like something I'm surviving instead of living? You search for answers the way everyone does now. Videos, quotes, books, podcasts, words stacked on words, promising clarity. Some helped for a moment. Most faded quickly. Because the problem wasn't lack of information. It was lack of connection. One night, unable to sleep, you turned off the lights and sat in the darkness longer than usual. No phone, no music, just a low hum of existence. At first, your thoughts screamed. Regret surfaced. Old conversations replayed. Mistakes introduced themselves again, uninvited. Your mind tried to pull you back into stories. Stories of who you should have been. Stories of who you failed to become. You almost reached for distraction, almost escaped like always. But something stopped you. For the first time, you stayed. And beneath the noise, something else waited. A presence. Not a voice. Not a thought. Just awareness. You notice your breathing. The subtle rise and fall of your chest. The fact that you were alive without effort. That existence was happening through you, not because of you. And for a brief moment, just a moment, the weight lifted. Not because answers appeared, but because the questions disappeared. That moment scared you more than confusion ever had. Because if peace could exist without explanation, then maybe everything you were chasing wasn't as necessary as you thought. From that night on, life began to feel different. Not better, different. You started noticing how much of your energy was spent resisting the present. How often you argued with reality in your head. How frequently your mind whispered, "This shouldn't be happening." But it was happening. You realized something uncomfortable. Pain wasn't coming from events. It was coming from resistance. Life wasn't attacking you. It was inviting you to stop running. You had spent years preparing for a future moment when life would finally begin, when you'd be confident enough, successful enough, healed enough. You treated the present like a hallway instead of a room. But what if this was it? What if the moment you were waiting for was the one you kept postponing? As this thought settled, something else surfaced. Fear. If you stopped running, you would have to face yourself. Not the version you present to others, but the one behind it. The one that feels lost. The one that doubts. The one that aches quietly. And yet, something inside you knew that was the only way forward. You began sitting with yourself more. No goals. No affirmations. Just presence. At first, it felt pointless. Unproductive. Almost wrong. But slowly, you noticed subtle changes. Your reactions softened. Your thoughts lost urgency. Your emotions moved through you instead of trapping you. You stopped needing every moment to mean something. And in that space, meaning arrived on its own. You saw how life had been teaching you all along, through disappointment, through delay, through silence. You saw that what you called obstacles were actually redirections. That endings weren't punishments, but clearings. You began to understand that growth doesn't feel like rising. It feels like shedding. Letting go of identities you once needed. Letting go of timelines that were never yours. Letting go of the belief that your worth depended on becoming someone else. One evening, walking alone, you notice how effortlessly the sky darkened. No resistance. No apology. Day didn't cling to light. Night didn't demand permission. They trusted the transition. So why couldn't you? You realize how much suffering came from comparison, measuring your inner journey against someone else's outer highlight, judging your chapter 2 against someone else's chapter 10. But life doesn't move in straight lines. It moves in spirals. You don't return to the same place. You return wiser. And then came the realization that changed everything. You were never lost. You were simply being stripped of illusions. Illusions about control. Illusions about certainty. Illusions about who you thought you had to be. The universe wasn't ignoring you. It was simplifying you, making room. And the moment you stopped demanding answers, clarity began appearing in unexpected ways. Not as sentences, but as feelings. Not as plans, but as knowing. You started trusting life, not blindly, but honestly. Trusting that what moves away creates space. That what stays teaches. That what hurts reveals. You understood now why silence had felt so uncomfortable before. Because silence doesn't distract you. It introduces you. And once you meet yourself without judgment, without urgency, without the need to fix, you realize something profound. You were never broken. You were becoming. And becoming doesn't make noise. It happens quietly, beneath the surface, like roots growing in darkness before ever touching light. That night, as you sat again in the stillness, you didn't search for meaning. You rested in presence. And for the first time, life didn't feel like a problem to solve. It felt like something listening back. And then you remember who you were before the world spoke. Something subtle had shifted after that night. Not in the world, but in the way you moved through it. Life continued exactly as before. People still rushed. Responsibilities still waited. Problems still appeared on schedule. Nothing external had changed, yet everything felt strangely lighter. As if a hidden weight you had been carrying for years had quietly slipped off your shoulders without asking permission. You began to notice how little control you actually had, and how freeing that realization was. For so long, you had tried to manage outcomes. You planned conversations before they happened, worried about futures that never arrived, replayed past moments as if repetition could rewrite them. Control had felt like safety. But safety, you now realize, was an illusion that demanded constant maintenance. The moment you loosened your grip, life didn't collapse. It breathed. You watched your thoughts come and go like weather. Some were dark, some hopeful, some pointless. But they no longer defined you. They visited, stayed briefly, and left. And you remained. This was new. Before, a single thought could ruin an entire day. A single memory could pull you backward for hours. Now, thoughts still appeared, but they didn't own you. You no longer chased them or fought them. You observed them. And observation changed everything. You saw how fear always spoke in urgency. How it demanded immediate attention, immediate action, immediate certainty. Fear never whispered. It shouted. And for years, you had mistaken its volume for truth. But now, you could hear something else beneath it. A quieter knowing. A steady presence. A calm that didn't need convincing. You started trusting pauses. You stopped forcing answers. When confusion appeared, you allowed it. When sadness came, you didn't label it as failure. You felt it fully, without turning it into a story about your worth. And strangely, emotions began to pass faster when you stopped resisting them. One day, you realized you hadn't asked yourself, "What's wrong with me?" in a long time. That question had been replaced with something gentler. What is this moment asking of me? Sometimes the answer was rest. Sometimes it was honesty. Sometimes it was letting go. You began seeing patterns, how life repeated lessons until they were learned, how the same pain wore different faces, how endings always came disguised as betrayal or loss. And you understood now why growth had felt so violent at times. Because the ego doesn't dissolve quietly. It fights for survival. It clings to identities, labels, narratives. It would rather suffer familiar pain than face the unknown. It would rather stay small than risk emptiness. But emptiness, you discovered, wasn't nothingness. It was space. And space was where truth lived. You notice how often people spoke, not to communicate, but to protect their identity. How opinions were shields. How certainty was armor. How noise was avoidance. You had lived there too, always explaining, always defending, always proving. But now, silence felt powerful. You no longer needed to announce who you were becoming. You didn't need validation for your inner shifts. The transformation wasn't meant to be witnessed. It was meant to be lived. And that's when something unexpected happened. The things you once chased stopped chasing you back. Approval lost its taste. Recognition felt hollow. Comparison grew exhausting. You realized how much of your ambition had been borrowed. How many dreams weren't yours, but inherited from expectations you never agreed to consciously. And without drama, you set them down. Not because they were wrong, but because they were heavy. For the first time, you asked yourself a dangerous question. If no one was watching, how would I live? The answer scared you. It was quieter, slower, simpler. It didn't impress. It didn't compete. It didn't rush. It breathed. You noticed how the present moment expanded when you stopped dividing it into past and future. How ordinary moments carried depth when you actually arrived in them. A cup of tea, a walk, a breath taken without distraction. Life had been whispering all along. You just hadn't been listening. And then came the deepest realization of all, the one that dissolved the last layer of fear. You had never been separate from life. You had always imagined yourself as something moving through the world, navigating it, surviving it. But in truth, you were not inside life. You were life, the same intelligence that beat your heart-shaped galaxies, the same force that moved seasons moved your breath. You weren't forgotten by existence. You were an expression of it. Nothing had gone wrong. Nothing needed fixing. The suffering had come from forgetting this, from believing you were alone in a hostile universe instead of part of a living whole. And once this understanding settled, not as a thought, but as a felt truth, fear loosened its grip. Death no longer felt like an enemy. Failure no longer felt final. Uncertainty no longer felt threatening, because you saw now that everything was movement. Everything was transition. Nothing was static. Not pain, not joy, not identity. Even you, especially you, you stopped trying to become someone and allowed yourself to be no one for a while. And in that no one-ness, something ancient returned, a remembering. You remembered what it felt like before the world told you who to be, before worth was measured, before time felt like pressure, before life became performance. You remembered that awareness itself was enough, that being here was enough, that you didn't need to earn existence. And in this remembering, gratitude appeared, not forced, not performative, but quiet and deep. Gratitude for breath, for consciousness, for the simple fact of experiencing anything at all, even pain, because pain, you now understood, was not an enemy. It was a signal, a guide, a doorway. It pointed to places where you were still holding on. And each time you let go, you felt lighter, not happier, not euphoric, but real. Oh, complete in a way no achievement had ever given you. Life didn't suddenly become easy, but it became honest. And honesty brought peace. Now, when silence comes, it doesn't threaten you. It welcomes you. When questions arise, you don't panic. You trust that clarity doesn't arrive on command. It unfolds. You no longer ask life to make sense. You participate, and that is the secret few ever discover. Life doesn't want to be understood. It wants to be lived, fully, presently, without resistance. And as you sit here now, reading this, breathing without effort, aware of awareness itself, something inside you recognizes a truth. You've been here before. Not in this life, not in memory, but beyond time. This is not the end of your search. It's the end of running. And from this stillness, life will move again, through you, as you, without force, quietly, naturally, exactly as it always has.